Hello, hello. Welcome back to some CoKo Let's Play. I'm doing Townscaper again today. For the second time today. With a drink. A non-alcoholic, kind of herbal drink. It's pretty good. Because I was too lazy to make tea before I continued the stream. And I figured I got some of this stuff left around. I got to finish at some point. So I wanted to keep going from the session I did this morning because I felt like I didn't build enough things. And I want to keep building. So this might not be super long, but I want to make some more things happen in this neighborhood here. So let's work on this building here. Now, one of my thoughts was to make it wrap around this pier. I might do that. Some funky shapes, but with the funky shapes manifest in the buildings, I actually like them better. Yeah, I like this idea. This will almost kind of be like a private pier. Yeah, this is nice. Okay. And I could even make like some stuff on the second level if I wanted to, which I probably will. Again, I don't want to make it too tall because it's kind of close to... I mean, this thing is so massive, though. I got this other building, which is a little bit tall, not too far from it, and it looks fine. In fact, it's almost like better because of it. But this one is next to the single-story wing. I don't want to dominate that too much. I want to leave that visible. We'll play with it. Alright. So we got a little bit of a gap here, which is nice. I like that. We might put some like porches, or maybe make this 2 tiles wide. Lot of options. We'll leave a little bit of a gap here, just depending on how this lines up. Do I want it to like end on something like this, or on like this one, and maybe do a little thing like that? That kind of looks cool. I'm sure I'll have more stuff here to build. I don't know exactly how, but I'm sure I will. Yeah, I kind of like this. This looks pretty cool. Let's add a second layer here. Nice. So how might we want to do this? I could do an interior courtyard. Something like that. That's kind of neat. I kind of like the idea of that being covered, but it's not covered down below. Wow, that's a cool screenshot, actually. Love that. Let's pull my keyboard closer. I should take more screenshots that are like this. Alright, if I'm going to have my keyboard, I can use it to do navigation. What's tilt? Let's look at the keyboard controls. Alright, EQ for height. I guess I don't have everything on the keyboard. It's a combination of keyboard and mouse. Scroll to zoom. Wait, that's a lot of color choices. Why are there so many? Oh, I guess there are that many. Okay, I thought there might have been more colors than I knew. Okay, so you do like this. Oh, this is actually tilting. Yeah, it's a little unusual, but that's okay. I might just click and drag around. Alright, so what I was trying to look at was how this looks where it doesn't actually have something underneath it. I don't know what it's being supported by. It seems like there would be some pillar, but I guess not. A light well for both the dock, or the pier, and interior windows. That's awesome looking. Second level balcony, which I like. Wraps around. You can go and look at the museum on this side. But I might want to do something over here. Like this whole thing doesn't need to be like a big walkable path, I think. That's cute, but seemingly unnecessary. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. If I were to also like connect these, what would that look like? Then that gets a balcony too. It might be a little too much. I kind of like this spot being open. Kind of provides a nice angle on the square for like photos and whatnot. And I think this is a decent height, but I could make it higher. I just don't know exactly how I want to do that. Do I make like everything just another layer higher? Or just that? That's kind of a neat idea. This could be like a penthouse apartment that has a window that looks back onto the museum and the rest of the city. I don't really know how everybody would gain access to their units, but that's a problem I'm just not going to deal with in this game. It's too minutia. What if I even went one higher? I love that shape. Okay, that's it. Now, if I remember correctly, this thing is like unsupported underneath here. Oh, I'm remembering correctly. But, you know, structural integrity is not the biggest priority. I want to make it at least like seem realistic. Believable, I should say. I'm sure there's some way to make it work that we can fantasize. Okay, now do I want to do this? Kind of. Door. I like the idea of a door opening out to it. Because if I remove it, there's these two doors, which works. Maybe one over here too. Yeah, and that's a good one because it seems like that'd be like a main access path. This one could be too. But the more doors that open up here, the better. All right, I think this is good. Now let's give them little thing there. Private balcony. Little thing there. Private balcony. How about you? Corner balcony? Yeah, it's kind of cool. See, these kinds of choices are silly. Like a door with a ladder leading up to it from the beach. Like, it's not impossible to imagine. And its utility, what it could be something like a little fishing spot, but still, it's like not really what I would do. It's fine. You don't need to worry about that level of detail. Yeah, this looks cool. I think it's one of my favorite buildings. And I think it does everything in terms of like being interesting with its shape and form, not detracting away from its immediate neighbors of interest, which in this case are the arches in the square and the museum. I could even make this taller. It wouldn't really detract from the museum, but it might from the arches, so let's leave it as is. Though this is the same height as the arch, and it's a couple squares away. All right, we're good. We're good. It's exactly what I wanted. I don't want to overthink it. All right. So now we're getting closer to this neighborhood of larger planned buildings being fully formed. So I think we need like 1, 2, 3 more in this territory. And then we'll figure out how to just kind of round it and connect it. I don't know where this is going to connect, if anywhere. The way it's looking now, with the way I built this building, I'm feeling it won't. I'm feeling it'll be on its own. And I mean, until something comes on the other side, at least. Like, I don't want to wrap any other path this way that... Well, it doesn't seem awful. I could consider it. Let's see how these develop. All right, so there's the bridge, there's the building. Let's build another thing off the square and go from there. All right, so you come down this path, past alongside the museum, into the square. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting combination of things. It's like, this can be like a tourism zone because of the fact that you got this nice square and the museum, but all around it are these like, condo buildings, which would presumably be bought by locals. But if you imagine a stupid Airbnb type market, I guess they could be luxury Airbnbs, which I don't like. I like the idea of like the tourist stuff being nestled amongst the residential areas. I feel like that's a great balance in any city where, both for the residents and the tourists alike. If you come visit a city, going to the tourist attractions, nothing wrong with that. Like, a lot of them are worthy of seeing, but at the same time, you want to get a feel for the residential side of a city. And nevertheless, like any place dominated by a tourist visit is going to also have the complementary, like, commerce and activity happening. And so you probably want to venture out into the wider city to get away from that anyway. But still, having like I live really close to some tourist sites, and I did in other cities I've lived in, almost all of them. And I thought it was lovely to have like a little bit of that hustle and bustle around. Okay. So this one ended up being like a private pier thing with units alongside it. I might go try again with the concept of like a single entrance into a large isolated structure. But maybe instead of orienting it around like residential, maybe I could do another like city hall type thing. So for context, when I was playing around in this neighborhood and I made this tall tower, which in retrospect, like, you know, the instinct to make it like a site was cool. But all I did was just make it like a tall tower. Like I could have gone to town and made it a bigger thing. Like I did the museum, because it started out with the same cool star shape. But at the time, I was trying to keep things simple, and that worked. I mean, I wouldn't change it now. Just in other neighborhoods, I'll try and think to, you know, go bigger, go more interesting. But this hodgepodge feel, you know, can't be underestimated. It's awesome. But I did say, all right, let's make this, like, it looks a little bit more formal because everything else is so multicolored. I made this building all white right next to it, saying that this is like administrative offices of the city. That was my thinking, right next to like a, you know, like the centerpiece. Or maybe it's even like a, you know, tourist visitor center thing. So maybe that's a smaller one, and over here can be a bigger one, like a complex that has like city hall and like a justice department and, you know, whatever else, and it and is in and of it and is itself like a public space to explore. There's plenty of cities whose like city halls are beautiful, especially in America, like neoclassical architectures with like domes and stuff that you go in to see, and they're close to all the other actions. So I think that's what I want to do next to this square. So maybe we could just like kind of right in the center-ish, maybe even 2 tiles wide. We have something that goes here, down here, and then we like build around it. Or an entranceway, like I was saying before, and then an interior complex. Yeah, it could work. What if the entranceway is another arch? Whoa. Alright, I'm just going to test this idea real quick. It's going to be a little bit different than the other arches. Nah, it takes away from the overall thing. Could be little towers. Guard towers. Why not? Alright, so you come down and you're met with... Let's put the white guard towers back up for a second. Dope. Maybe I should make these arches one thing higher. Just want to test it real quick. That's the wrong green. A little exaggerated, actually, because of the fact that I've built stuff around it. It doesn't stand out as much. It's a bit exaggerated, but I'm not against it initially. And I can still have these little towers. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. All right, so this is a good opportunity to use more white for these buildings here. So you got some like guard towers, and then you got some, you know, entranceway into something. No, I gotta keep reminding myself that I'm doing the interior compound idea. In which case, I guess it's gotta be one more closer. Wow, the way this doesn't look like an entrance whatsoever. What if I like... Now it does. I can live with something like that. Alright, let's do this for now. And we want an interior space. So we want maybe like a courtyard surrounded by some structures is what I'm thinking. But it doesn't have to be like totally square. It can be a bit chaotic, and it's going to have to be with this grid here. Should I turn the grid on? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I got rated. Cool. Well, thanks very much. Hello, hello. Always happy to see raiders. It is going all right. I'm just doing a little casual building. So it's very chill vibes over here. Got a little herbal beverage. And just working on this city that I've been working on. Thank you. Yeah, it's a fun thing to just do. Like this didn't happen in one session. This is just things I pop in on and contribute to when I have some downtime. Thank you very much for all the compliments. But it's fun. It ends up looking cool as you continue to build to it. And like this neighborhood here, all the buildings are like different colors and kind of like smaller scale. Almost like an old school Venice type neighborhood. And this one here, the buildings are a little bigger and more uniform, more planned. So that's kind of the vibe that I'm going with. And, you know, I'll keep growing it. But right now, what I'm working on is this like section here, which I'm kind of doing is like maybe like an administrative center, like a city hall and some other public buildings next to this square. And this giant thing I kind of think of as like a museum. So I'm kind of making like an interior courtyard. That's a good question. I kind of imagine that if there is a limit, it's probably well beyond anything I need to worry about. Because as far as like resource cost for the PC or for your console, any system to render this stuff, I don't think that's an issue. Keeping track of where buildings are placed should be fairly trivial. So I really don't know if they've like built in any fixed limits to the size of the grid. Like certainly I can zoom out only so far, but I don't actually know if like the grid stops there, or if I were to expand, it would expand. The zoom would expand with me. In any case, I think I got a while before I would potentially run into that. So if I get to that point, that would be really cool. All right, so let's see. What I was doing here was building some of these public works buildings. So I got a little interior courtyard. And then I got one building here. So let's just like make it a little bigger and then work with it to see what to do. And then on the other side, we'll have another one. Something like this. I could even maybe make the courtyard longer and have some more buildings. Yeah, those are great games too. I think Christmas was roughly when I bought this too. Maybe there was a sale or something that all of us were like jumped on. But yeah, that style of game is a fun thing to just have on the side when you just want to casually build something without too much thought for like a half hour. Yeah, other than some favorite like series or developer games, almost everything I get, I wait for a sale, since like I'm not on the bleeding edge of too much. So I'm happy to wait. All right, I wanted to extend this, so let's bring the grid back up so I can kind of plan out. The fact that it's not a totally square grid is a blessing and a curse, because it makes things look interesting, which is great. But then when you want to make some straight shapes, it can be kind of tough. But not a big deal in this instance. I'll just play with this path until I get something that I like. All right, so this building can expand a little bit in this direction, and the path continues down here. You can get something over here, and then something on the end. 3, maybe 4. And if this is going to be like a public space for like city buildings, you can imagine like statues and stuff in the courtyards to give tourists something to look at. All right, let's see if we can like do... something roughly like this. All right, now to give each of these public buildings some kind of character to them. I don't need to leave quite this much courtyard. I might eat up some of it. All right, let's go with shapes, and then we'll figure out function. I like that this curves. That actually creates a nice pattern. Oops. It's a little funky, but kind of cool. All right, that's a start for that one. So some of the things that could be are like City Hall, some kind of superior courthouse of some kind. What else? Like a chancery or offices, I guess. One of them can be boring offices. I kind of want the spire on the other side. That's not bad. This one could be big boring offices. Maybe it could be like 2 rows deep. Yeah, it's kind of neat. What if I even had like another layer to it outside? That's pretty cool. And then I can mirror that shape. Feels like one tile too tall. Too... Nah. Yeah, that's good. Nah, it looks better like this. Okay, now what to do with this little tiny thing? Feels like I'm going to have another building over here that's more like this purple one, kind of like a big apartment complex or hotel or whatever. So this one can kind of eat up this space, but not connect to the square. I wonder if I can make it U-shaped. That looks pretty good. So someone coming in from the square would go through these like guard tower things. Yeah, that kind of works. And this can be a second story. Maybe not. Cool. So you walk through the entrance area where they got like security and whatnot. Maybe some public restrooms. Interior courtyard with things that'll be around here. And then 4 individual buildings that are accessible. Don't really know what they'd be for, but that's not a big deal. I like this one. This one's kind of neat. Okay, so that's a administrative thing. All right, so we got another building in here. Similar to this one, I want to do like 1 story closer to the arch so I don't block view of it. But it can be taller over in this direction. What if that's what its gimmick was? What if it was like a wedge shape? That could be kind of neat. I'm feeling like this this idea won't work though. All right, what color do we want? That's a pretty good color. Yeah, the nice thing about this arch is that there isn't a building directly behind it, so when you look through it, you don't just see a wall. I kind of want to do that here too. I don't want there to just be a wall right behind the arch. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it very much. Yeah, you too. Take care. Awesome. Yeah. Lurk as much as you like. I do the same thing where I like to have a stream on while I'm doing other stuff. Unfortunately, there's no way to make a straight angle, as far as I know. So I can't really do a wedge in the way I was thinking of it. This is more like the museum where it's like pyramidal. So what I might do instead is create these like squares that go up. Also, the sound effects of this game are kind of soothing. Make for some good background sounds. Alright, I need to start this off at 1 story. Okay, that's not too bad. There's not like a wall immediately behind it creating just a uniform flat look. At least here there's some texture to the view. It's actually quite pleasing. This angle doesn't matter as much. I should still leave it 1 story here. Okay. Now I need to find a way to make this grow organically. I need to bring this down by a story. Have a good evening. Yeah, being like a giant square, the mass of this building is even bigger than some of these other ones that I built in this neighborhood. So I kind of like this white one over here. I think I need to thin this out so that it doesn't just like look like a giant boulder in the middle of the city. It's too big, too big. That's kind of neat, but I think it needs a little more work. I think in the middle, maybe I can try and create some kind of a roof deck. Cool. All right. I think this looks pretty good. And if you're in the square looking out, and balconies are nice from the perspective of thinking about like living in the city and having access to like a rooftop view. But they don't look as good as the shingles when you like zoom out and look in on the town, because it's the same flooring as the paths. So I actually like the look of the roof with the shingles better. But I do want to leave a little bit of balcony space. Nah. Making it an arch in the back is kind of a cute idea because it mirrors the arches in the square. But I feel like by doing that I almost cheapen them. So no, don't make it an arch. Alright, this might be a good compromise. Oops. Oops, oops. Nice. Okay. I think that's good. I like the shapes that I've made. And the mass of the building is still pretty substantial. It's on par with the purple one right next to it. I think it's a pretty dominating piece of architecture. But it's still not massive enough to like overtake anything too much. So I think it's good. It's kind of interesting how I started this neighborhood wanting big planned buildings, but the ones I built at the start, like this white one and then this like lime one next to it, look tiny by comparison to the ones I made after that. So I started off with something that stood in contrast to the old part of town, where everything's really just like 1x1 squares of color. But then I went overboard. And going overboard is actually a good way to do it. Hello, it is going well. I am continuing to build things in Townscaper. I'm not sure that I did. 1 second, I just noticed that this one is an extra tile wide. Thank you. All right. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I find that a game like this that gives you some organic, non-standard things to work with, like the grid system is not perfectly square. And if you just mess around with like different combinations of forms, you get diversity in the end look. And that's kind of the goal I'm after, is to just play with things that look right in the microscopic, and then when I zoom out, I find that all my buildings have like slightly different approaches to them. And then pair that with a little bit of master planning for like neighborhood designations and whatnot, and it should end up looking pretty interesting. And in fact, I think I've reached a point where this neighborhood of larger, uniform, geometric-ish buildings is complete enough. to call it, you know, a done neighborhood. So now I think what I can do is like make a new neighborhood with a totally different architectural feel. I might do another one that's like the original neighborhood. Yeah, I like the idea of starting with like a massive green space and then adjusting. I took an approach somewhat similar to that in a couple places. In the older part of town, I got like what I thought of as a marketplace where I made like a big square in the middle and then put stuff on the side and a little bit on top to kind of cover it, but not completely. So it could be like a public market where there's like stands in the open area, and then also some shops and restaurants and whatnot here, and maybe living quarters for people who have markets. So that came out pretty well with that approach of like starting off with a core element and then modifying as you go. All right, so now I got a big choice in terms of the next neighborhood. One is where to attach it, and the second is what kind of visual style to give it. All right, if I look at this like big museum thing as a center point ish, I definitely want to have neighborhoods all around it. Like, I don't think it's going to be on the edge of town. I think it's going to be closer to the middle of town. Because that's where many museums are in big cities. So we can start to think what comes on this side of the museum. And we've got this bridge here is the connector to this neighborhood that holds the museum. So we could do like another bridge out to here. Or we could go a bit overlapped and have like a neighborhood that's half on this side and half on that side. I actually like that idea. I will only have 3 neighborhoods, so forming them like a triangle gives them like a more equilateral distribution in terms of like visual weight. But I'm going to keep adding to it. It won't stay as a triangle. But that's the inspiration I have now, so I'll go with that. All right, so I want to create this as my connector. I'll expand that a bit. One more. Alright, I think that's a good starting shape. So if we look at the other examples where we got a gap between the neighborhoods, yeah, we don't want it to be clean so that it just follows like a circle. So this path might get broken up. But we can start here and here and then adjust and maybe mess with that path as we go. Alright, I don't want this neighborhood to have too many like large planned buildings like the one I was just working on. I want it to feel a little more old style. A little more chaotic. But it should have something that distinguishes it from the other neighborhood. Maybe like a central garden area or something like that. But I got a square in this neighborhood, so I don't want to just repeat the same concept where every neighborhood has like a literal square. Like I would argue that this whole neighborhood has the tower as like its centerpiece. So we got a tower as a centerpiece, we got a square as a centerpiece. Alright, I'll figure it out as I go. Okay, another thought I have is I might actually want to start this on the other side with the path that goes in this direction. And then come back around in this direction. And the reason I do that is because this extension is so long that I don't know how I'm going to get neighborhood out here. Unless it's in exactly this way. I have stuff pointing both directions. Which is exactly what I did here, but then I changed it to a square. Yeah, that's kind of cool. All right. Let's plan on that to start with. Alright, so we need a gap for the bridge. That's roughly, how many tiles is this one? 1, 2, 3, 4. Something 4 or 5 tiles. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Could even make it bigger. Somewhere around here we start building. And we don't want to overtake the museum. So let's just pick a color and start making some smaller structures. And this path I'm actually going to delete because I don't want to follow it. There we go. These will meet up organically. Maybe this could be like a boathouse row kind of thing. Individual small houses, each a different color. Cool, that's cute. I'm going to leave a gap though for a path. Okay, I think that's enough with the individual little squares building up to something bigger. So now we want to start recreating stuff like this, where we got, you know, weird suspended things and whatnot. That's awesome. Good kitties. Oh, that's great. 3 kitties. That's the best. Not at the moment. I had a cat, and she unfortunately passed away a few years ago from old age and sickness. So, but it was a good time while I had her. But I I can't get another one right now. But at some point, I'd like to have another kitty. Okay, this is starting to look a little funky, as I liked, as I wanted. Oh, wow. That's great. That's a very active environment, I'm sure. Thanks for joining. I hope you have a great evening. I'm happy to do so anytime. Feel free to check back again sometime. If I can entertain kiddies, then there's no more noble pursuit. So an idea I had as I was working on this, for maybe not this neighborhood, but some neighborhood, could be to create almost like an entire city in terms of like texture and diversity in like a second, third, or fourth layer up, with like pathways between things. Imagining that, maybe almost people who live up there could go about their days and most of the time not need to descend down to the lower levels. That could be a cool concept to employ. And if not exactly that, then maybe also this like idea where, there's like a hill and like the neighborhood goes up a little bit. A hill might be a good idea here, actually. I don't know how to accomplish a hill, though. Yeah, in isolation, I'm just going to try... Yeah, a hill doesn't really work because of the fact that the second you build another layer, it's a building and not like a pillar in ground. So that doesn't really work as a hill, but I could still create layers where there's like a lower layer of buildings with connections, a second layer with its own pathways and connections. In fact, let's try that in small scale here, this region of the neighborhood. But before I do that, let me kind of finish off this side of things. Nah, it's okay. I'll do that later. Alright, so what I want is like a pathway for the lower layer, and then I'll build some buildings, and then on top of that, I'll isolate a second independent pathway that's not just directly on top of the first layer. So maybe we imagine this. Okay. So if this is a pathway for a first layer, then we need to make like, I don't know how this is going to work. It's almost like we need to fill in the entire first layer with building, with maybe some holes in it, some gaps for light to get through. Let's try it. Could be a neat experiment, if anything. So at some point, the second floor path is going to have to drop down. That might just need to be imagined, like through a building. something like this, but we'll fill in more. And we're gonna, so the path outside is the first story path. Second story path will be something like this. And then maybe we need a third story path as well. So that's a second story path. Second story path. We're going to need to fill in some of the middle before we make a third story. It's not a big enough light well. Okay. Cool. That looks good. This is going to end up looking more like a castle than anything. Nothing wrong with that. I guess it's basically the same concept. So we can leave different light wells for the second layer. So it looks like we figured out our path for the third layer. And we'll create a connector between sides. Maybe we'll even do that now. I guess it'll happen when we build the next... So let's say it goes... around here. And then across. That's kind of cool. A light well connected to a lower level light well. Oh, there's stairs when you do that. Which is precisely what I was looking for to connect the layers. That's the secret of how I get people between the layers, is to connect the light wells. Which effectively just means connecting balconies. That's what creates stairs, is a connecting surface area. So anything that's like wide enough to have tiled flooring instead of being a house. Okay. Well, here's one connector. This kind of means I think anywhere we should this one can be big and wide open. We should create another connector here. So maybe we close up this gap with blue. And then we open it here. There we go. That creates the connector we're looking for. If I tried hard enough, I could get it on the exterior. Let me see how this might work. Yeah, it might be tough. So let's not bother. Let's create the light wells we want over here. So if the path is going to come across like this, then let's do connector here and here. Ah, it didn't work. Something like that does. Sweet. All right, now we need another color. Orange, blue, yellow. No. Yeah. Not that green. There we go. Maybe this color? Even better. So that's how I do it. Yeah, it might work better if I just leave this unconnected and create up and down. The idea that you'd have to leave the third layer and come down and go back up just across to the other side is a little unfortunate. But I think that's the better option of the two. There we go. Okay, so now to consider the light wells. This can do that. Okay. Perfect. I love this. All right, now we need a fourth layer as like a capstone. It can be red. Only in a few select places. There we go. Alright, I think that's it for this complex. It's a very different idea than both the neighborhoods. Definitely has a large mass to it, but it's also weirdly shaped, so it doesn't really look like these buildings in this neighborhood so much. I can surround it with more of these individual things to give it some identity. But the idea, roughly, is that there's neighborhoods in the layers. And I'm not sure it works like mathematically, like if you were to map this out, but there's a couple indicators that there are connection points, like this series of stairwells can get you between the layers, and then a couple paths that continue in several of the layers. The top one doesn't go all the way across, but it's not really supposed to. It's just kind of like an interior connection. Alright, do I have any desire to cap it off with something? Like a little thing in the middle? That is a nice square for it, tile for it, but it's a little hovering. I don't want that. I want something that's more clearly rooted to the ground. Like this one, maybe. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And there's similar stairwells over here on this side. They don't go all the way up, but go pretty close. And if you never bother to leave the ground floor, there's a pathway around. That takes you neat. Yeah, this ends up looking a little bit like an amalgam between the old style neighborhood where there's chaotic twists and turns and the new style neighborhood where there's like uniformity of color. I don't think I strictly needed to be uniform in the colors in the layers, but it still looks okay. Yeah, especially like this little bit here. That looks really cool. I suppose maybe I could put some like little balconies on the outside to just give it a little more visual flair. It's actually a great idea if they come in layers. Not that one though. Start off, nope, don't like that. That looks good. That looks very good. I cut off a little bit of the space between the neighborhoods, but it's still okay. It's like 2 big tiles. 3 tiles looks like. That's fine. That might be like a minimum. I can actually do the same all along. If I were to do something like that, that would work. Now let's put it here. Nope, don't like it there. There, sure. Nice, I like that. That's a nice little touch. Perfection. And there's something nice about the clean edges on at least one side. So not that side. And not really that side. Nope, don't like that. Don't like that. And don't really like that. Yeah, I don't really want anything to hang over the lower path. I feel like that one should be unoccluded. And like the clean edge here looks awesome. Awesome. I think this is... If these towers are... Can I get the laundry if I put them one closer to each other? Only if it's like that. But this gap is too large because it's 2 tiles technically. Okay, never mind then. Alright, I think I'm done with this. I think it is all set. So to continue, if I wanted to make like kind of triangularly oriented neighborhoods, we got one here. We got one here. Maybe we don't even really consider the museum as part of it. Say we'd kind of want to fill out this side. Then it'll be a pretty good triangle shape. I should take some screenshots. Let's turn off the grid. Now, being able to export this as like a 3D texture file is cool. You could imagine importing it into something like a Roblox engine or something that lets you then have an environment where a character can roam around in it. But I'm pretty sure that's just like the 3D like grid system. I don't know if the assets come with it. In any case, I'm nowhere near the point at which I'd be interested in something like that. Alright, I don't think I have any screenshots of what I did over here. Very cool. Yeah, it took a couple, like an entire stream to get this square right with the arches, but I'm glad I stuck with my gut and undid everything that I didn't like, even though it was a lot of waste of time, because it looks really good on a grid structure that is rectangular and somewhat uniform. Whereas the other way I was trying to make it work just wasn't working. And this looks great as a result. The spacing between the two arches is perfect. It clearly registers as like an open square. And the arches stand out, even though there's plenty of stuff around it. So it's clearly like the centerpiece of this neighborhood. This neighborhood doesn't really have a centerpiece either, unless you consider these white towers within this complex as one. But I don't know. This strikes me more as like a neighborhood thing, where if you live within the neighborhood, you can venture up here. But asking someone from the outside to go navigate all this is asking a lot. I think if I do create some kind of like a tourist attraction within this neighborhood, it should be standalone, starting from the ground up. Though if I wanted to do something that is layered, I could do like a pyramid structure, not like almost like a combination between the museum and the tower, where I got like a tower in the middle, but I've got a few layers around it that go upwards. The mass of that would be pretty large though, so it would take up a big amount of space, and that's something I don't really want in this neighborhood. Another idea could be like winding paths, like an area that's not as dense, almost like it's a city park. If there was a way to kind of get the game to give me a bit more park-like stuff. Like trees show up, but I think that's semi-random. But we'll see. All of that is a project for next time. I think this was definitely a worthwhile endeavor, and I like the way it looks overall. One more screenshot here. Beautiful. All right. It's starting to get dark here. And it was a very rainy and ugly day outside. That's why I'm inside playing video games. A weekend day in the spring, almost summer. But where it's not really nice outside. The other days, although they haven't been summer temperatures, they've been clear skies and really lovely. So it's been nice to get out, which I'm trying to do more and more. So my streams have become less frequent in the last couple of weeks, and I think that trend is going to continue. But today, because I'm just inside on a ugly rainy day playing games, I might even play a little more later. So keep an eye out. I don't know about Townscaper. I think I'm done with Townscaper for the day. But something like Myst, maybe? Potentially Baldur's Gate 2. Or Baldur's Gate, comma, as well. Baldur's Gate 3, comma, as well. But we'll see. So keep an eye out and take care.